Severe sanctions and blocking from the global systems within days of the military operation launched by Russia on Ukraine. Several countries announced the imposition of a package of severe sanctions against Moscow, which affected the largest Russian institutions and prominent personalities, up to Russian President Vladimir Putin personally. We will show you in this video all the sanctions were imposed on Moscow, and in spite of this, Putin is still stubborn and ignores these sanctions. Although some countries warned Russia of imposing sanctions on it in the event of a war on Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin decided to invade Ukraine indifferently. And every time that Russia directed a missile towards Ukraine in the ongoing war since the 24th of last month, it imposed a new punishment on Moscow. Several Western countries have imposed a package of sanctions against Russian figures and institutions in order to harm Russia's economy and financial resources, with the aim of deterring them from their military intervention in Ukraine. The European Union, the United States of America, and Britain announced several sanctions against the capital, Moscow, the most important of which are the sanctions that were imposed on the Russian Central Bank and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, in addition to the removal of some Russian banks from the SWIFT system for global financial transfers. The sanctions also included freezing the assets of President Vladimir Putin and his Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, in addition to including Sergei Shoigu, Russian Defense Minister, and Alexander Bortnikov, head of the Russian Security Service, in the travel ban and asset freeze list in the European Union and the United States of America. The European Union decided to impose a package of sanctions on flights belonging to Russian companies, in addition to freezing the assets of the central bank. The Union also decided to limit the sale of citizenship by using the Golden Passport, which in turn allows the wealthy Russians to obtain the citizenship of European countries. And the Russian news platforms were not spared from this matter. The European Union announced sanctions on Sputnik Agency and Russia Today channels. Following in the footsteps of the European Union, the United Kingdom decided to freeze the images of some Russian banks and to exclude them from the British financial system. Some laws were also issued that prevent Russian companies and governments from obtaining funds from the British market, and Britain decided to suspend licenses to export goods that could be used by Russia for civilian or military purposes, such as the export of high-tech goods, including oil refining equipment. Britain announced a few days ago that it would not welcome Russian ships to its ports. Where attended any ship carrying the Russian flag or registered or owned, chartered or managed by heads. As for the United States decided to punish Moscow by imposing several sanctions. These sanctions included a group of Russian banks and a number of prominent personalities, in addition to withholding all high-tech goods from Russia. America issued a warning to its citizens not to conduct any transactions with the central bank and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. The Russian Finance Ministry imposed direct sanctions on the Russian Investment Fund and its CEO, Kirill Dmitriev. And from America to France, which decided to increase its sanctions against Russia by freezing the assets of the Russian Central Bank and cutting off banks from the SWIFT network of cross-border money transfers. As far as Berlin, it decided to freeze the blocking of special permits for the Russian Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is intended to export gas to Europe, and Australia imposed sanctions against wealthy Russians, and more than 300 Russian parliamentarians, who voted to allow sending the army to Ukraine. Japan also imposed sanctions on institutions and key figures, including exports of several goods to Russia, and the Japan Civil Aviation Authority announced the closure of the country's airspace to Russian airlines, with the exception of emergency flights only. Denmark has suspended all shipping to and from Russia, shipping company Maersk said in a statement, due to the negative impacts on its operations and transport security due to the sanctions imposed on Moscow. Countries are still competing so far in imposing sanctions on Russia, and the sanctions have not yet been able to stop the military operations launched by Russia against Ukraine. At the same time, FIFA has announced the exclusion of Russia from the FIFA World Cup. Do you think that all these sanctions benefit